No surprise that we saw a 25 basis point increase. Some would argue that it's not really going to have a material impact on inflation or on growth or on consumer confidence. It's just really the ECB saying that this is what we're doing to be prudent and to show the world that yes, we are keeping an eye out on inflation. Is that the right way to look at this?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it was inflation concerns that would have prompted them to increase the rates. I think in the Eurozone, obviously you've got core economies like Germany that are growing at around 3.6% and are doing well. You've also got peripheral economies which are probably still kind of lagging behind a bit, but the decision around inflation is probably around those core economies. Like you rightly said, probably 57 out of 57 economists predicted that rate hike. So the markets were expecting, and it was largely priced in. So the risk would have been to the downside. Last night, euro dollar did test 143.50 and sort of came back a bit, awaiting the announcement. And then again, it did break through 143 again after the announcement came out.
We're sitting at 142.99. We are seeing a bit of euro weakness. Do you think that we're seeing euro weakness at this point? Because Jean-Claude Trichet said that this isn't the start of a series of rate hikes.
It probably added a bit of confusion into the market, because I think the market sentiment is that once you start hiking interest rates, it should be part of a series of interest rate hikes to calm inflation. I don't think the market was expecting a once-off, and we did see the euro move on that. But I think the euro is still in good territory. There seems to be a lot of support for the euro. It seems to be well bid. There are talks around the world of different countries changing their reserve currency or just diversifying their reserve currency into euros. So there does seem to be a lot of demand for euros at the moment, and there's a lot of risk appetite. There's a lot of global risk appetite.
That's amazing. I mean, the euro is a reserve currency at a time where Portugal announces that it needs a bailout, where Greece has received a bailout. We've seen the Irish receive a bailout. Spain said that they're not going to be receiving a bailout. We've heard that rhetoric before from Ireland and from Portugal as well. Do you think that these countries are going to be pushed to receive a bailout package?
I don't believe that there's any concern around Spain or Italy at the moment, and certainly what Portugal has done is deemed as prudent by the market. So instead of just denying that they had an issue and that they didn't need a bailout, they've now gone to the market and requested the bailout, and I think that's calmed the market a little bit. Also, Spain being bigger than Greece, Portugal, Ireland put together, certainly means it's a lot more robust, and there is no real expectations. If you have a look at the CDS spreads, as well as you look at the cost of borrowings for Spain, they have sort of come back in the last while.
I also find it fascinating that they would start deeming the euro as a reserve currency and move away from the US dollar. Do you think that they're starting to paint the US dollar with a dire brush, that we will see a lot of pressure?
Sure. Eleni, I'm not talking about a drastic move. I think there is just diversification into the euro. So I think talking about the dollar not being the reserve currency anymore is not at all what's happening. It's just more of a diversification, a rebalancing. And if you think about the volume of dollar reserves that have been built up over the years, the current reserves for euros would probably be small in comparison.
So we're sitting at around 668 or so to the US dollar. We are seeing a little bit of strength coming to the fore against the euro today when it comes to the local currency, a bit of pressure against the greenback and the pound as well. Where do you see the rand going from here? And does it really stem in terms of what we'll see from the eurozone and the euro performance?
It does, but it also, there's a lot of positives from commodity prices. So we again are still in a strong rand environment. There's a lot of positives for the rand. Commodities are strong. There's global risk appetite, as well as we've seen a return of investors into our markets. I think the real caution is that the SARB will not let it go, will not let it go untouched. So we should see action from the SARB. 668 was really a key level. It did touch below it, and it's now gone back to 668. So certainly we would see it in this range and a strong rand.
And we're still seeing buying coming through in the bond market and South African equities.
We have seen in March
a different trend to what we saw at the beginning of the year.
Exactly. In the first quarter we saw money leaving, and in March we've seen money coming back in again. So again, strong rand environment, like all commodity currencies as well. I mean, obviously gold coming back a little bit today, maybe on the back of ECB dealing with inflation, those kind of issues, but still in a strong rand environment.
If we do see an interest rate hike in South Africa this year, is that going to result in a stronger currency? Because we'll see more flows coming into the country based on the yield differentials. Is that a reality?
Look at the carry trade is still very attractive, and I think that is a reality. If we look at our repo rate still being at 5.5%, you would expect an interest rate rise to potentially attract funds into the country. Yes.
Well, Anthony, let's touch on the gold price. We're sitting very close to the record highs that we saw yesterday. We're sitting at $1,458 an ounce. You were talking about the fact that we've seen commodity prices doing quite well, so commodity-linked currencies also being boosted. What about the yen? We've seen yen weakness. We saw intervention, G7 intervention. We see the carry trade resuming as well. It's really difficult to read into the local currency right now. Is the big curveball going to be the South African Reserve Bank here?
Well, the South African Reserve Bank will be the factor which prevents the rand from going stronger quicker. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of there are a lot of positives for the rand which